Hello, hello, hello. Continuing on with Chapter 3 of the RTFM 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide. DM Geezer Jim here. We're getting into the toolbox part, the nuts and bolts, the stuff that helps us with homebrew, the stuff that helps us with creative stuff, and while making sure that gives us a space to be creative, to make sure that we are still balanced within the rule structure of the game. So our next section is a little bit more lengthy, I hope. It looks like it anyway. So we're going to talk about creating a creature. Fair warning, this video is going to take a little bit of time because I'll probably have a lot of comments about this when we get to the end. But at the risk of chasing you off with that statement, let's get into the words. The line by line, word by word, 2024 Chapter 3 DM's Toolbox, Creating a Creature. Use the approaches and examples in the following section to build custom creatures for your game. Minor alterations is the first thing. You can change the superficial details of a creature's appearance however you like, and you can alter any of the following pieces of monster stat block without impacting its functionality. Size and creature type. You can alter creature size and creature type as you please. For example, you can use an ogre stat block for a human bully, just make it a medium humanoid instead of a large giant. Ability scores. You can usually change a creature's intelligence, wisdom, and charisma scores freely unless the ability is used for spell casting. For example, a black pudding stat block could represent a sapient alien if you raise its intelligence and charisma to 10 or so. It's usually best to leave its strength, dexterity, constitution scores alone, as changes to these scores can alter a monster's attack bonus, damage, armor class, or hit points, which in turn can alter its challenge rating. Languages. You can change any or all of the languages the creature knows. You might want to add languages if you've made a creature sapient that wasn't before. You can also add or remove telepathy or other forms of communication. The next section is proficiencies. You can give a creature any skill proficiency you want and give it expertise if you want it to be very skilled. If you want a creature to be good at hiding, give it expertise in the stealth skill. If its keen senses make it an excellent tracker or otherwise adept at finding hidden foes, give it expertise in the perception skill. You can also increase its wisdom as noted above. You can also swap a monster's saving throw proficiencies. If it has none, you can add one or two. Senses. Blind sight, dark vision, tremor sense, and true sight have no bearing on a creature's challenge rating. You can add or remove them freely. Spells. If a stat block has spells, you can replace any of its spells with a different spell of the same level. Avoid replacing a spell that deals with damage with one that doesn't, and vice versa. Attacks. You can freely change the name and flavor of an attack as well as its damage type. For example, you can turn an ordinary skeleton into an ice skeleton that deals cold damage as it accosts characters with a blade of ice or hurls shards of ice at them. Resistances and immunities. If a creature doesn't have resistance or immunity to one or more damage types, you can give it resistance or immunity to one or two damage types. You can also change the damage type of its existing resistances and immunities. The next thing is traits. You can add traits to a creature's stat block to communicate aspects of the creature's nature. See the creature trait list for sample traits. Sample traits. You can also use traits from other stat blocks in the monster manual, provided you don't add traits that alter a creature's hit points, confer temporary hit points, or change the amount of damage the creatures deal to other creatures. So here's a list of our traits. Creature traits: an aversion to fire. If the creature takes fire damage, it has disadvantage on attack rolls and abilities until the end of its next turn. Battle ready. The creature has advantage on initiative rolls. Beast whisperer. The creature can communicate with beasts as if they share a common language. Death jinx. When a creature dies, one random creature within 10 feet of the dead creature is targeted by a Bane spell, which lasts for the full duration, save DC 13. Dimensional disruption. Disruptive energy extends from the creature in a 30-foot emanation. Other creatures can't teleport to or from a space in that area. Any attempt to do so is wasted. A disciple of the Nine Hells. When the creature dies, its body disgorges a hostile imp in the same space. Disintegration. When the creature dies, its body and non-magical possessions turn to dust. Any magic items it possessed are left behind in its space. It could be an emissary of Dweeblix. When the creature dies, its body disgorges a hostile ogre jelly in the same space. Fey ancestry. The creature has advantage on saving throws it makes to avoid or end the charmed condition, and magic can't put it to sleep. Forbiddance. The creature can't enter a residence without an invitation from one of its occupants. Gloom Shroud. Imperceptible energy channeled from the Shadowfell extends from the creature in a 20-foot emanation. Other creatures in that area have disadvantage on charisma checks and charisma saving throws. Light. This creature sheds bright light in a 10-foot radius and dim light for an additional 10 feet. As a bonus action, the creature can suppress the light or cause it to return. The light winks out if the creature dies. Mimicry. The creature can mimic beast sounds and humanoid voices. A creature that hears the sounds can tell they are imitations with a successful DC 14 insight check. Poison Tolerant. The creature has advantage on saving throws it makes to avoid or end the poison condition. Resonant Connection. The creature has a supernatural connection to another creature or an object and knows the most direct route to it, provided the two are within 1 mile of each other. A Siege Monster. The creature deals double damage to objects and structures. A Slod Host. When the creature dies, a hostile Slod tadpole bursts from its innards in the same space. Steadfast. The creature has immunity to the frightened condition while it can see an ally within 30 feet of itself. Telepathic Bond. The creature is linked psychically to another creature. While both are on the same plane of existence, they can communicate telepathically with each other. Telepathic Shroud. The creature is immune to any effect that would sense its emotions or read its thoughts, as well as to spells from the schools of divination. As a bonus action, the creature can suppress this trait or reactivate it. The next thing is Ventriloquism. Whenever the creature speaks, it can choose a point within 30 feet of itself. Its voice emanates from that point. Warrior's Wrath. The creature has advantage on melee attack rolls against any bloodied creature. Wild Talent. Choose one cantrip. The creature can cast that cantrip without spell components using intelligence, wisdom, or saving or charisma as a spell casting ability. A lot of words, not a ton of information. As we get into the commentary, well, there's a lot of words and information. The first thing I want to talk about is this is not talking about creating a monster from scratch, okay? A little bit of a misnomer here. This is more talking about making alterations to the creature. The one thing I want to point out here is they didn't put a huge emphasis on it, but I want to. We are trying to avoid altering the challenge rating of a creature, okay? Challenge rating summarizes the threat a monster poses to a group of 4-player characters. Compare a monster's CR to the character's level. If the CR is higher, the monster is likely a danger. If the CR is lower, the monster poses little threat, but circumstances and the number of player characters can significantly alter how threatening a monster is in actual play. The Dungeon Master's Guide provides guidance to the DM on using CR while planning potential encounters. So, the idea here is we want to spiff up some creatures without changing them too badly. We don't want to shift something from being a CR of 3 to a CR of 6 because we made a bunch of alterations to it. At that point, you want to make alterations to a CR 6 monster to fit that bill, using these same rules. This is for the new DM, the more experienced Dungeon Master, the more creative Dungeon Master. Those of us who have been playing for a long time, we know how to set up a creature, build them from scratch to hit a certain CR. Our new DM doesn't. So if you're an older guy and you're looking at this book going, that's nothing. Remember, this is for the new DM that wants to get a little bit of creative control over their creatures, making minor changes to your monster that won't affect the challenge rating, but will provide different types of challenges. Changing damage to cold can be a helpful thing. For example, what we're talking about in your attacks on your skeleton. Resistances, immunities, you can swap immunities. You can add 1 or 2, but don't go nuts with it, because if you make it resistant to lightning, cold, fire, if you make it resistant to every spell category and it wasn't resistant to begin with, you are altering the challenge rating of the creature. You're making it tougher than it was supposed to be. Not saying you can't, not saying you shouldn't, but in view of the chapter we're reading, this is all talking about making alterations, what you can alter on a creature without completely rebuilding it or changing its threat level, changing its CR. Okay, we're starting here because in chapter 4 we talk about balancing encounters. So you don't want to make a whole bunch of alterations to your creatures just to realize that you made a challenge, a challenging encounter into a deadly encounter because you added resistances and tremor sense to every creature. That is one thing I want to point out. I understand it says blind sight, dark vision, tremor sense, and true sight have no bearing on a creature's CR. You can add or remove them freely. That's interesting. A creature with tremor, scent, or blind sight, your stealther's not going to be able to get in there on them anymore. Your sneak attacks go away with something on tremor sense unless they get outside of the range. So I guess I can kind of understand that. Likewise with spells. If the creature has spells in its stat block, feel free to swap them around if you need to. The book says avoid replacing spells that deal with damage with ones that don't, and the other way around. Because the challenge rating is typically, I'm going to air quote this, tied to the difficulty of the spells, the damage output of the spells, or the control natures of the spells that are put in a creature's box. I don't know the science behind it. I'm still trying to figure out the secret sauce, because I'll be honest, some of Wizards' CRs don't make sense. But it is what it is for a new guy, okay? Obviously, the resistance immunities will be a big difference. The traits, last but not least, these are all examples. These are not a comprehensive list of traits. Most of these are minor alterations that you can add to any creature's stat block to make it easier or harder to fight, or more or less challenging without messing with the challenge rating, okay? So that's the idea is here. You can add traits to a stat block to communicate aspects of the creature's nature. If you need it to be a terribly evil elf, then you give it Death, Jinx, and Disciple of the Nine, Hell. But make sure you're describing to your players as well. That's the other thing I want to kind of, as I finish up this section. If you are making wholesale alterations to your creatures, your players should be aware of some of these through your descriptions, through your descriptors, okay? It shouldn't suddenly be, okay, this, obviously some things your players are going to find out the hard way, but we're using the ice skeleton, for example, the icebone skeleton. There should be icicles and patterns of frost coming off of this. They should feel cold emanating from this thing as they get closer to it. I think my opinion here is if you're going to go into a lot of alterations for your creatures, that's great. That's awesome. Enjoy being creative. But your players still need to have an opportunity to figure out the differences somewhere along the line. You shouldn't, even if it's the first contact, even if it's the first time the thing hits them, no, take cold damage. Ooh, that's interesting. That's fine. But yeah, your players should be aware of the changes that you've made as they encounter and experience the monster. Okay? There's a lot more I could go on to in regards to creating a creature. This is not a comprehensive section. The creating a creature section is the by title is a little bit misleading. It should have been altering a creature, but it is what it is. I think though, when you practice with your minor alterations and you use these methods, pretty soon the next step is creating your own monsters, and we do talk about that later in the book. So this is a good tool. This is a good starting point for a new DM. But we're going to go ahead and end this little recording on Chapter 3, Part 4, Creating a Creature, including my little commentary. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. Hopefully you're finding this series useful. Likes, follows, subscribes, Twitch. I'm over on Twitch talking about this shit live. Would love to have you guys join me over there. But rest assured, good, bad, or ugly, we're going to be doing this for the whole book. So if you like audiobooks, I can invite you to follow along, push that button, push that subscribe button, all those cool things, and be here for more. Y'all be safe. We'll see you soon. Oh, there it is.